Welcome to episode 80 of Norse Myths, Legends, and Folktales. My name is MyLinda Butterworth. Today we learn about the battle between Laurin and Dietlieb and what becomes of the Rose Garden in part 2 of the Wonderful Rose Garden. Many wounds did Dietrich receive, but he waxed in battle fury and suddenly took the unseen dwarf in his arms and wrestled with him. From the prince's mouth issued forth flames of fire, but without avail. He could not injure Laurin. "Snatch off his waist girdle!" Hildebrand cried. Ere long Dietrich possessed himself of the magic girdle, which gave to the dwarf his great strength. Then the prince had him in his power. He cast the little king on the ground and tore off the cloak of obscurity. Laurin feared that he would be put to death, so he called upon Dietlieb, Kunhild's brother, who pleaded for his life. For the young Dane desired most of all to discover where his fair sister was held in captivity. Thus did the dwarf king escape from the vengeance of Dietrich. He gave thanks unto Dietlieb, and when he had sworn oaths of brotherhood with him, he invited the prince and all his knights into his mountain castle. They went together over a pleasant plain and through a fair forest. A great linden tree was there, and many fruit trees whose odors were sweet. Birds sang merrily in the branches, and Dietrich was glad of heart. He began to make answers to the birds, but old Hildebrand warned him not to whistle until he had left the wood. All the knights were light-hearted save Witiga. He had bitter memory of how the dwarf had prevailed against him and suspected treachery. Wolfhart taunted him, but Wieland's son rode in front. He was first to reach the castle entrance. He saw there a bright golden horn suspended on a chain. He blew a loud blast upon it. When he did, the door opened wide, and they all went within. An iron door was opened. It closed behind them. Then through a door of shining gold they went. It was shut fast like to the others. Soon Dietrich and his knights found themselves in a bright and spacious hall. Hundreds of dwarves were there. They made merry, they danced, they held tournaments. Delicious wine was given unto the strangers, and even Witiga forgot to be suspicious, and made merry with them. Then did Laurin begin to work his designs. He cast a spell upon Dietrich and his knights, so that they could behold not one another. They saw but the merry dwarves and the glories of the mountain dwelling. At length fair Kunhild appeared. She had been made Laurin's queen, and wore a gleaming crown. Many maidens came with her, but she was fairest of them all. Dwarfs playing harps and dancing and performing strange feats skipped before her and around. In her crown shone a bright jewel. It dispelled the magic mist, and the warriors beheld one another again. Then was a great feast held. Kunhild sat with Laurin and Dietlieb, whom she embraced tenderly. She took beside her. They spoke in low voices one to another. Great was her desire to leave all the splendor and wealth that was there, and return once again to her own kin. The dwarf persuaded all the knights to lay down their arms. So merry were they that they did so without fear. Evening came on, and Laurin led Dietlieb to a chamber apart, where he made offer to him of rich treasure if he would desert Dietrich and his knights. But the young Dane refused resolutely to be a traitor, whereat the dwarf vanished, and the door was locked securely, and Dietlieb was made blind. Then were the strangers given wine, which caused them all to fall into a deep sleep. The vengeful King Laurin thus had them in his power. He caused them to be bound, and they were all cast together into a deep dungeon, so that vengeance might be wreaked upon them, because that the rose garden had been despoiled. There they lay helpless and blind. Kunhild wept for them. When the dwarfs were all asleep, she stole in secret to her brother's chamber and gave to him a golden ring which dispelled this magic blindness. Then did the young Dane secure possession of his weapons and those of his fellow knights. Meanwhile, Dietrich woke up. Wroth was he when he found that he was fettered. The dwarf's girdle restored his sight, and flames issued from his mouth, which melted his bonds of iron so that he rose up. He went towards each of his companions and set them free, one by one. Dietlieb then came with all their weapons, and when the prince he fought fiercely against the dwarfs. At length Dietrich wrenched from one of them a golden ring. He gave it to Hildebrand, and his sight was restored. Then did the old warrior enter the conflict. The dwarves fell fast before them. Thousands were put to death, for there was none in Laurin's castle who could prevail against the three great warriors. At length Laurin rushed without. He blew a great blast upon his horn, and 5 giants, armed with clubs, came to his aid. Wolfhart and Vitiger were still blind, but they could rest not while the clamor of battle raged about them. So they rushed into the fray and fought bravely. Then gave Kunhild unto them jeweled rings, and their blindness was dispelled. The 5 giants fought against the 5 knights, and long and terrible was the struggle which ensued. But one by one the monsters were slain, and Dietrich and his knights were triumphant. The heroes waded knee-deep in blood. So great was the slaughter which they accomplished in the kingdom of Laurin. Then was the dwarf king made prisoner, and Kunhild set free. Dietrich and his knights possessed themselves of much treasure, and they returned unto Bern, taking with them Laurin and Dietlieb's fair sister. Laurin was laughed at and put to shame, and he brooded over his evil lot, desiring greatly to be avenged upon Dietrich and his victorious knights. So he sent a secret message unto his uncle Viberan, who was king over the giants and dwarves in the eastern Caucasus, and besought him to come to his rescue. He spoke secretly thereat unto Kunhild, whereat she made promise that if he swore oaths of friendships with Dietrich, she would return with him to his mountain dwelling and be his queen once again. So she prevailed upon Laurin to do her will. "My rose garden," he said, "I shall plant again, that the roses may bloom fair and fragrant in the sunshine of May." The dwarf king drank with the Prince of Bern and made peace, vowing to be his lifelong comrade and helper. As they sat together at the feast, a message was borne unto Dietrich from King Viberan, demanding all the treasure and all the weapons that were in Bern, and the right hand and left foot of every knight who had fought destruction in the rose garden. Defiantly did the prince make answer, and prepared for battle. Dietrich and Viberan challenged each other to single combat, and they fought with such great fierceness. Numerous were their wounds, nor could one prevail over the other. It seemed as if they both would be slain. Then did Laurin ride forth, and embracing his uncle, he prevailed upon him to make peace. Hildebrand pleaded likewise with Dietrich, and the combat was brought to an end. Together they then sat down to feast and drink wine, and they vowed oaths of friendship so that there might be lasting peace between them. Kunhild returned with Laurin unto his mountain dwelling. The rose garden was planted once again, and it bloomed fair in the sunshine of May. Herdsmen among the hills and huntsmen who went thither have been wont to tell that they could behold on moonlit nights Laurin and fair Kunhild dancing together in the green forest and in the valley below the Tir-Alese mountains. Dietlieb's sister hath still her dwelling in the bright castle, as in other days. She is queen of the dwarfs, and can never die. The rose garden blooms ever fair, but unbeholden by men in the sunshine of May, and many have sought it in vain. And here is where I end my tale for today. But I'll be back with more tales, many more tales. Until then, my friends, enjoy the journey.